Hi guys, welcome to Dean's Den, brought to you by ExtremeCarCleaning.com. Hi guys, and welcome to Dean's Den. Today what I'm going to cover is environmental contamination, and I'm going to cover brake dust, I'm going to cover tree sap, tar, and I'm also going to cover different types of protection and how you guys can use all the things that are out there to try and make your life a little bit easier and make things easier for your customer. Now I'm going to start off with brake dust. There's a lot of misinformation out there coming from the dealerships and coming from the manufacturer. What's going on here is the brake dust is caused from the brakes being applied to the rotor. The rotor is metal. What happens is when it makes contact with that rotor, there's dust that comes off. When you're driving in wet conditions, it gets into the water droplets, it runs down the car, and it pools. So you're going to see a lot of dust, like your little brown specks if you have a white vehicle. You're going to see it all in the tops of the moldings. You're going to see it in all the grooves of the moldings. You're going to see it around the back end of the car, right behind the wheels. That's where you're going to have your highest concentration, and partially up the door. Now, if it was environmental, okay, if it was caused from something in the air that was landing on the car, then it would be on the top surfaces of the car, okay? Which is possible because if you live near railway tracks or you live in an area where there's a lot of iron dust in the air from a factory or whatever the case may be, a metal plant, you may have environmental contamination on there. The other types of contamination are tar, which you know where that comes from. It's just right off the road. It sticks to everything. All right. You've also got tree sap. Tree sap, people tend to leave it on the car because they don't know what it is, or they just figure, oh, I'll clean it off later. You know what? It's acidic and it does a lot of damage to the paint. If you leave that sitting on there, it's going to do a lot of damage. So the way I deal with tar is you have to use some kind of a solvent. Now there's all different kinds of solvents out there. It doesn't really matter which solvent you use, but you need to use something that's designed to remove tar for painted surfaces, because if you use something too harsh, it'll damage the clear coat on there. All right, you don't want to damage that top layer of paint. You've got your base coat, and then you've got several layers of clear. Usually there's 2 to 3 layers of clear on top, so you don't want to damage that. You want to extend the life of that as much as possible. With tree sap, you want to use isopropyl alcohol, and that's what you're going to use to remove it. Now, there's all different kinds of tar removers out there, and tree sap removers, and all these other things. The difference between a tar remover and a tree sap remover is the chemicals that are in it. A tar remover is a thinner, but the thinner is made to a strength that will effectively remove the tar and do minimal damage to the clear coat. Tree sap remover, all it is isopropyl alcohol. That's the main ingredient in all of them. So why pay $30 for a bottle of tree sap remover when you can go to your Buck store or you can go to your Walmart and get it? Now, when you're using isopropyl alcohol, you want something that's 99% or at least 70% to effectively remove it. So you're not wasting all your time trying to get this stuff off. You want to do it in the shade. You never want to be doing decontamination in direct sunlight. It's not good for the paint. It's best to have it in a nice, cool, shaded area and remove it, because once you heat up the paint, you're opening up the pores of the paint, you're softening the paint, it's easier to scratch it. Now, you've taken care of your tree sap, you've got your tar off the car, now you're left with this iron dust. Now, if the iron dust is on the top surfaces, what we do here, all right, depending on how bad it is, if it's light contamination, then we'll use a product called AR5, which is just an iron remover, just like Iron X. Doesn't matter which one you use, they're all basically the same thing. If you're using an iron remover, it'll change color. Now that's fantastic for a white vehicle, because the last thing you want to do on a white vehicle is seal it, wax it, or put a coating on there and you've still got contamination underneath it. You've totally wasted your time, because now you've got to remove all that and redo it. You want to make sure you get everything off of there. And using an iron remover, especially on a white vehicle, is the best thing you can use, because it's going to show you where you've missed. With clay, I've used clay bars and I've used clay mitts. Now I find that the clay mitt is a lot faster at removing it because of the surface area. I definitely would recommend using a clay lube product. Use a product that's made to work with the mitt and work with the clay. Because if you don't, it's going to damage the clay and damage the mitt. It's not going to last as long. So if you're using clay or you're using a clay mitt, why not use the right stuff? It's going to last a lot longer. It's going to do a much better job. You're going to have a lot less scratching on the car. And at the end of the day, you really don't want any marring. there's already going to be some marring on there just from driving the vehicle and washing it. You're going to have a little bit of scratches no matter what you do. Once you've got all that off of there, okay, through clay or clay mitt, you always want to follow up with something else. Now, some vehicles here, if they're heavily contaminated, what we'll do is we'll clay them first. Then we'll take a fallout acid and we will get in there all the moldings in that with fine brushes. We'll loosen up all that contamination, get all of that off of there. Then we'll go at it with an iron remover. That way it turns color and we make sure that we've got everything off, especially if it's a white vehicle. If it's a darker vehicle, if it's smooth to the touch, then you can use, like I said, you can use your clay mitt, you can use your clay block, you can use your fallout remover, or you can use a product like Iron X, just an iron remover, okay? I would go all 3 steps if I'm working on a white car, because you're going to see that brake dust. If you're doing a darker color car and there's 1 or 2 specks somewhere on the car, you're not going to see it. But on a white car, it sticks out like a sore thumb, so you want to make sure everything is off of there. Another thing you want to check too is you want to open up your door jambs, your trunk lip, and you want to make sure that there's no contamination in there. Because like I said, this stuff is carried by water. So wherever the water can go, guess what? The rust is going to be traveling along right with it. And it's going to dry in there. So you're going to see in the trunk sill, you're going to see in the hatchback sill, in the door sills, in the door jambs, you're going to see that little bit of iron dust in there. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to spray that with your Iron X, or you're going to want to use fallout remover. Okay, sometimes what we'll do is we'll take a very soft bug pad and we'll use that for inside the door jambs, and we'll use some fine brushes sometimes to get in there. We use boar's hair brushes when we're working with delicate areas because they're very soft and there's very little chance that it's going to do any damage. It does a nice job of getting in there and loosening the stuff up. So you want to be very careful with that. Once you've got everything off the car, you want to wash the vehicle down with a neutral soap. Okay, you want to get everything off of there. What I like to use is I like to use Clean Slate. You don't have to use Clean Slate, but I would recommend if you're going to put a coating or you're putting a wax or you're putting a sealant on there, I would want to get everything else off of there so you don't have any kind of reaction to the coating you're putting on, to the sealant you're putting on, and you also want to make sure, especially if you're polishing it after you've decontaminated it. If after you decontaminate you notice there's some scratches in there and you polish it, then guess what? You should make sure all that polish is off of there. So you're going to want to wash it with some kind of product that's going to strip all that off of there. So once you've got the vehicle washed down and the paint is all cleaned up and the pores of the paint are nice and clean, then you can go ahead and you can apply either your ceramic coating or your paint sealant. Now, I'm not going to get into all the different ways of installing it and everything else. We've all been down that road. If you're not certified to do ceramic coating, you should get certified and have a professional teach you exactly how to apply it. It's very important that you know how to do it properly. It'll save you a world of grief, especially when you're charging a lot of money for ceramic coating. Okay, you need to be properly trained. Paint sealant is a lot more forgiving. If you screw it up, you can strip it off pretty easily. Ceramic coating, it's not that easy to remove. Passing that point, apply your coating, apply your paint sealant. Once that's done, what we do here, and this has worked really good for us for the last 25 years. Okay, now we haven't had ceramic coating around for 25 years, but we have had paint sealant. And the one thing that we did differently than everybody else was we put a wax on top of the paint sealant. And a lot of people ask me, well, why would you do that? Well, the reason is paint sealant dries rock hard in most cases. Okay, it dries very, very hard. It does have hydroponics in it, yes. It does make the water bead, yes it does. But you know what? It dries so hard that all the contamination will latch right onto it. So what we did was we went and we would put a coating of wax on top of that paint sealant. We used a proper wax that was made to work with paint sealant. We would use a wax that's non-abrasive. We would use a wax with no cleaners in it. Ammo has products that work hand in hand. They have paint sealant and wax that work hand in hand. Chemical Guys does. Masterson's does. Most of the companies that are out there that produce sealants have a wax that'll match up with their paint sealant. If they don't, you can use high-end liquid carnauba, and that liquid carnauba wax will lay on there and they're non-aggressive. Now, if you're using an all-in-one wax or you're using an abrasive wax, and I don't want to throw any names out there, but if you're using one of those waxes, They're made to remove scratches. They're made to enhance the look of the paint, but they're also going to remove paint sealant or they're going to damage your coating. So you want to avoid those, especially if you're using a coating. You would never want to put that on there. Now, for ceramic coating, Angel Wax and other companies have actually come out with ceramic infused waxes. Now, the nice thing about these waxes is there's a chemical in there that helps them adhere to ceramic coated vehicles. You ask, why would you do that? The same reason you would do that with a paint sealant. Ceramic coating is hard as a rock. Now, once you stick tree sap on there or tar on there or brake dust, guess what? It's going to stick right to the ceramic coating just like it would to the paint. Now you've still got the same problem. You still have brake dust all over the car. And I've run into this. I've had white Audis come in here and white BMWs and you can see it. And it's got a professional grade 5-year coating on it. Guess what? After 6 months, brake dust is back on there again. So I took it one step further. I thought, you know what? This worked with the paint sealants. I'm going to try it with the ceramic coating. So I got myself Angel Wax Enigma, which is a ceramic infused wax. I met with Rick Vanderlee at SEMA in 2019. Rick is the designer for all the Angel Wax products. Now, all the Angel Wax products are ceramic infused. They're made to work with ceramic coatings, and they work fantastic. They latch right on there, they last a long time, and they work. The nice thing is now you've got a little bit more of a barrier between the outside air and the surface of your coating or the surface of your paint sealant. That little bit of barrier is nice because a wax is a lot softer than the sealant. So when you're washing the car, a little bit of that wax will come off every time you wash it. That's why they tell you this wax will last up to a year. If you're out there washing the car every single day, guess what? The wax is not going to last that long because every single time you're massaging that, the friction is going to remove a little bit of that. It's going to take off some of the contamination. It's going to take off some of the brake dust. It's going to take off some of the other things that are sitting on the paint because it's taking it off with the wax. That's why it's so important to work with your customer and tell them, look, if the water's not beating up on the car anymore when you're washing it, it needs to come back for a maintenance service. And they pay for that. So if there's money to be made and it's beneficial to the customer, why would you not do it? There's guys out there saying, oh, don't ever put a wax on top of a coating. Why wouldn't you if it's designed to go on a coating? And you can make more money doing it because if you work with the customer and you have the customer giving you feedback and saying, look, I washed the car and the paint's all flat on it. It's not beating up. There's something on there. Either he's washed it with dish soap and totally stripped everything, or it's been all washed away because he's washing it too frequently. So you know what? He comes back. You charge him $75 or $100 or whatever it is to re-wax it. You charge him accordingly, but you charge him to put the wax back on. If you let it go to the point where there's nothing on there, everything's going to stick on that car again. You're going to have all that contamination right back on there, the tree sap and everything else. And this does work, guys. Because, listen, this white Audi comes to me every single week for 3 years in a row. And I dealt with this the first 6 months he had the car. We put a ceramic coating on it. We took every speck of iron dust off that car and then we coated it. 6 months later, it was covered in contamination. And guess what? When I used the iron remover, which was the only thing that would take it off, it damaged the hydroponics on it. It killed it. So after that, the paint was flat. So I got to the point where I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I went online, did a little research. I checked in Angel Wax. I found out about the products and I looked into it. And I put the Angel Wax Enigma on there. Guess what? The next 6 months were fantastic because when he brought the car back, there was minimal contamination. About 1/10 of what was on there. Now, if I hadn't put that on there, it would have been covered. That's what happened the first time. So ceramic coating is not the magic pill that everybody is out there bragging it is. I just figured I would cover this with you guys. So you need to know what's on the car. You need to treat it with the proper chemical. And you know what? Take the extra step and throw a wax on there. Now, if you're putting a ceramic coating on, guys, you have to wait 6 weeks for it to cure. Then you can put your wax on top. You have to wait the 6 weeks or whatever's recommended by the manufacturer of the ceramic coating. They've got some new ones now that actually cure in a month. They're changing it all the time. Now, if you're using an Angel Wax ceramic, a professional grade one, you have to wait the full 6 weeks. The 5-year coating that I use in my shop, which is made by Guard Group, that one you have to wait 6 weeks. On average, most of them you have to wait 6 weeks. The only time you can wait less is if that's what the manufacturer specifies. It has to be fully cured. I hope that was helpful. I know it's a lot of information, but you know what? This was really important. And I figured I would share it with you guys. And I really hope this helps because it's helped me and my customers are a lot happier. Their cars are staying cleaner. I'm making a lot more revenue because of it. And they're coming back more often. And because they're coming back more often, when they come in and they get their maintenance wax done or their treatment done on their car, they're coming in and saying, you know what, while it's here, can you do the interior too? It's one way where honesty is actually paying for itself because the more honest and open you are with the customer, the more they're going to trust you, the more services are going to get done. So thanks a lot, guys, for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Dean's Den. I just want to remind you guys too, check out Dell at www.mixcloud.com/DJDell523. Please remember to like the videos that you enjoy and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for tuning in, and like always, thank you very much for your awesome support. Thanks for tuning in to Dean's Den, and I'll see you next time. Brought to you by ExtremeCarCleaning.com.